Hey everyone, it's Argonath here from The Right Way, and in New Zealand, the soft on crime Labour government is basically going to be repealing our three strikes law. For some reason, if you don't know what the three strikes law is, basically, if you have offended three times with kind of major offending and you've gathered strikes during those three times, then on your third strike, you are required to get the maximum sentence possible for whatever it is that you did. But the judges are allowed to provide a little bit of discretion if they think the sentence would be manifestly unjust to reduce it a little bit. But generally, these three strikes offenders would get the maximum sentence. This is quite, I think it's been used in the US in some states as well. And I'm certainly a proponent of the three strikes law. I think it's a good idea because you've had three chances, right, to stop offending. So if you haven't learnt your lesson by your third strike, because you know when you're on a second strike, so if you do something again which is quite major, then you're going to get the maximum for whatever it is that you actually did, and you know this, right? So it shouldn't become a surprise to these idiotic criminals. So I've got a couple of articles about this, and I think it's going to be a huge detriment for New Zealand. So this is from Bob McCroskey, who I believe used to be part of the Sensible Sentencing Trust. Let's have a look at what Bob writes. Family First, not Sensible Sentencing Trust. So Family First New Zealand says that proposed scrapping of the three strikes law will only be celebrated by repeat violent offenders. Generally, only recidivist repeat offenders are the people that actually get the third strike, right? It's not someone who's doing something for the first time, because they'll only be on their first strike. But it will do nothing to protect families and communities from worsening levels of family harm, violent crimes, and gun violence. The Labour government doesn't care about victims. They only care about getting their crime stats down, the prison population down, to make it look as if they're doing something. They're virtue signalling, but people will get hurt in the long run. The Labour government had no public mandate for scrapping it. They didn't campaign on it in the previous election, and the evidence suggests it is having the desired effect. There has been a dramatic drop from the number of first strikes to second strikes, and then again to the third. That's what it's supposed to do, right? That's why we don't have huge numbers on second and third strikes, because once you get a first strike, you kind of think again as to whether you actually want to carry on and keep offending if you have any kind of intelligence. Criminals aren't stupid. They are well aware of the law and its consequences. If the regime is scrapped, the government is in danger of sending a message that we're not serious about the "it's not okay" zero tolerance message on family violence or zero tolerance on gun violence, said Bob McCroskey. The three strikes law reinforces that we take victimization seriously. A repeated slap on the wrist for violence undermines our efforts to reduce the tolerance for violence and the career choice for repeat violent offenders. We all know here in New Zealand, our judges are liberal lefties with bleeding hearts, and they always give sentences which are nowhere near the maximum, even for recidivist repeat offenders, because they think that they're trying to rehabilitate this person. And some people you just cannot rehabilitate, right? Just lock them away. I don't care if they don't get rehabilitated, but at least during that time, they're not in the community harming other people. That's what the point of jail is for, right? The best and most obvious way to protect women, children, men, and the elderly from repeat violent offenders and from gun violence is to incapacitate the offenders. Basically, put them in friggin' jail. You can't commit crimes against families and communities if you're in prison. The purpose of this three-step law has been to warn career criminals to find a new job, or else they'll become career inmates. They are effectively being given two chances to stop their violent behaviour. Research has shown that 88% of second strikers are assessed as high risk of offending by the Department of Corrections and have an average of at least 26 criminal convictions on their record. So anyone who got a second strike, they've had at least 26 criminal convictions. Does that not tell you that they're recidivist offenders, right? Taking away the three strikes law is not going to magically make them stop. 38% of second strikers have convictions for offences that are now strike offences, prior to them becoming strike offences. Third strikers have an average of 63 criminal convictions on their record. They don't learn, right? So why are you trying to get them back out early, Labour government? You bleeding heart Liberals, you're going to cause someone to die because of your bleeding heart Liberal agenda. Seriously, you're going to cause someone to die, and I will do a video on that. It'll be a really sad story, but we have to keep saying this when it happens. It's going to happen, right? Trust me. Someone is going to get out early because the three strikes law is not there. They're going to go away and they're going to kill someone or rape someone. And the Labour government will have blood on their hands, but just watch them shrug it away because they don't give a shit about the citizens of New Zealand or law-abiding citizens. They only care about their criminal mates because they want their votes, basically. A 2018 poll of almost 1,000 New Zealand undertaken by Courier Market Research commissioned by the Sensible Sentencing Trust found that 68% of respondents approve of the three strikes law, only 20% disapprove, 13% were unsure or refused to say. Significantly, the support was strong amongst Labour, 63% support, and New Zealand First voters, 66% support. The nationwide poll was carried out during February and March as a margin of error of plus minus 3.2%. This crime affects poor people disproportionately because that's generally where all the criminals live, right? So these are affecting the people that vote for Labour. You guys, probably none of you are ever going to watch any of my other videos, but if you know someone, get them to stop, talk to them about stop voting Labour because they're doing them a disservice, right, in the long run. So let's have a look at what ACT says. ACT was the political party that brought the three strikes law into legislation, or three strikes legislation into law, with help from the national government of the time. Labour is giving the worst criminals an early Christmas present by announcing they'll get early release. The government will today confirm our worst offenders are more of a priority than victims with an announcement to repeal Act's three strikes legislation. That's it. New Zealand government cares more about criminals than they do about victims. Think about someone who was raped, someone who was badly beaten up, and then people who were actually murdered or killed. There's nothing that the Labour government just doesn't give a shit about you people. New Zealand's most violent criminals who have repeatedly carried out crimes like murder, rape and serious assaults will get softer sentences. For every offence carried out, there is a victim. Labour seems to have forgotten that. Three strikes was an ACT idea introduced in 2010 to send a signal to violent offenders that New Zealanders won't tolerate repeated violent and sexual offending. Just 18 people have been sentenced to a third strike. The total number of people sentenced to a first, second or third strike account for just 1% of the people sentenced in our courts. So if this only covers 1% of the people sentenced in our courts, why is Labour repealing this, right? Because it's not affecting the huge majority, it's affecting the people that we need it to affect. This is the worst of the worst. These offenders leave behind a long list of victims, some who will never fully recover from the trauma. The first offender to be sentenced under three strikes carried out a vicious assault where he repeatedly punched, kicked and struck a victim with a piece of wood. That was strike one. After he was released from that sentence, he stalked and sexually assaulted a 17-year-old girl. That was strike two. Upon release, he stabbed someone in the leg. He would have received just 2 years and 3 months, but thanks to the three strikes, he was made to carry out the full sentence of 7 years, and our streets were much safer because he was behind. Of course, this person should have got the full sentence for at least the second strike as well. It's so sad that he sexually assaulted a 17-year-old girl. And you can bet he wasn't given the full sentence on his first strike, because you only get the full sentence on your third or subsequent strike. So whoever let him out, whatever lefty judge he was bad for that particular 17-year-old girl. Now he might have gone on to sexually assault another 17-year-old girl as well, but for this particular girl, she was victimized because of that. In another case, the first strike was robbery. The offender approached the victim sitting in a parked car and demanded his car and phone. When he refused, he forcefully dragged the victim out of the car and onto the road when drove off. Upon release, he carried out a similar offence, attacking a person after he refused to hand over money and their phone. His third strike was again similar, but when the victim refused to hand over money or their phone, they were thrown to the ground and had their head stomped on. This could have been any of us, right? We could have just been walking along the street, minding our own business. This absolute garbage human being comes over and tries to take our money or phone, and when we refuse, they go and beat us up, stomp on our head, could have caused brain damage or killed, whatever it happened to be. The offender had 105 previous convictions. Thanks to 3 strikes, he got the maximum of 5 years when he would have otherwise only got 18 months. That is so ridiculous. These offenders are not petty thieves. They're the worst of the worst. New Zealanders will see these sentences as entirely reasonable and feel safer with these violent thugs off the streets. The government is prioritising softer sentences for the most violent 1% of New Zealanders. As part of the next Government Act, will push to reintroduce 3 strikes because victims of violent crime deserve justice and New Zealanders deserve to be safe. Exactly correct, ACT Party. Wholeheartedly agree with you. Let's hope that if it is repealed by this idiotic Labour government, then it causes them to lose the next election, and then National and ACT can reinstate the 3 strikes law, but remove off the judges being able to reduce the sentence, because if they think the sentence would be unjust, because judges are bleeding heart liberals as they are. Let me know what you think. Are you for the 3 strikes law? Are you for the 3 strikes law, or are you against the 3 strikes law? I'd love to hear what you say in the comment section. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, you're welcome to give it a thumbs down. And if you like my content, please subscribe, as it just means YouTube will notice my content a bit easier. Anyway, hopefully I will catch you in the next video.